The sun rose softly over the kingdom, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Birds sang from the trees, and the morning breeze carried the sweet scent of blooming roses through the open windows of the house. Cinderella was already awake, as she always was, sweeping the front steps and humming to herself. Her heart felt lighter that morning, though she couldn't explain why. Perhaps it was the way the sunlight touched her face, or the way the air felt filled with possibility. "Good morning, Gus. Good morning, Jaq," she said cheerfully as her little mouse friends peeped from the corner. "Do you feel it too? Something special is in the air today," Gus squeaked happily, and Jaq nodded his tiny head. "See, even you agree." Cinderella smiled and went back to sweeping, completely unaware that her day was about to change forever. Just then, a sound of clattering hooves and wheels echoed through the street. A royal carriage, gleaming with gold trim, stopped in front of their gate. Cinderella blinked in surprise. A royal carriage? Here! The stepmother and her daughters rushed to the window, their eyes wide with excitement. "The palace messenger," Drizella squealed. "Oh, he's so handsome." Anastasia giggled. "Nonsense," said the stepmother, though her lips curled into a pleased smile. "It must be about the prince. Girls, stand tall. Look proper." The messenger stepped out, holding a golden scroll. "By order of His Majesty, the King," he announced in a booming voice that could be heard all the way down the lane. "Every eligible young lady in the kingdom is hereby invited to a royal ball at the palace, in honor of His Royal Highness, Prince Charming." He bowed deeply and handed the scroll to the stepmother. "It shall be held tomorrow evening. The prince shall choose his future bride." With that, he tipped his hat, climbed back into the carriage, and rode away. The room fell silent for half a second, and then chaos exploded. "A royal ball!" Anastasia shrieked. "The prince will be there." Drizella clapped her hands. "And he might choose one of us." "Calm yourselves, my dears," said the stepmother, her eyes gleaming with ambition. "We must prepare. We'll need new gowns, the finest jewelry, and of course, music practice. The prince must see your grace and charm." Then she turned to Cinderella, who stood quietly by the doorway, holding her broom. "Well, don't just stand there, child. Run and fetch my sewing basket. We have much to do." "Yes, stepmother," Cinderella said softly, but her heart fluttered with excitement. A royal ball, the palace, the music, the lights. Oh, how she had dreamed of such things. "Perhaps," she thought, "perhaps I could go too." As the day went on, the entire house buzzed with energy. The stepsisters tried on all dresses, twirling in front of the mirror. "Cinderella," Anastasia called, "tighten my corset." "Cinderella," Drizella whined, "fix this hem, it's crooked." "Cinderella," shouted the stepmother, "don't forget to press my gown." The poor girl hurried from room to room, helping them all. But as she sewed the final stitches on Drizella's dress, she couldn't stop herself from asking softly, "Stepmother, may I also go to the ball?" The room went quiet. Then came the laughter. "You," Anastasia snorted. "At the royal palace? Wearing what?" Drizella added with a cruel grin. "That rag you call a dress." The stepmother smiled faintly, a smile that wasn't kind at all. "Cinderella, dear, the invitation says every eligible young lady. So yes, you may go. If," she paused dramatically, "if you finish all your chores and can find something suitable to wear." Cinderella's eyes lit up. "Oh, thank you, stepmother. I'll do everything. I promise." She rushed to her work with renewed energy, scrubbing, mopping, dusting, and polishing until her arms ached. The mice worked beside her, carrying little bits of thread, and the birds fluttered in through the windows to help tie ribbons. By the time the sun began to set, the house gleamed. There, she said with a tired smile. All finished. Now, let's see if we can make something lovely to wear. She hurried to her room and opened an old chest. Inside lay her mother's faded pink gown, long forgotten but still beautiful in its way. This was Mama's. She whispered, "If I mend it a bit, maybe it could work." The mice and birds chirped with excitement and began gathering scraps of ribbon and lace that the stepsisters had thrown away. Cinderella worked all evening, stitching and patching, humming softly. When she finished, she held the dress up to the light. "It's perfect," she whispered, her eyes glistening. But just as she was about to try it on, she heard footsteps. The stepmother and her daughter stood at the door. "What is this?" Anastasia gasped. "That's my old sash," Drizella shrieked. "And my beads." "Cinderella," snapped the stepmother. "You stole from your sisters." "No, stepmother, I didn't steal. These were left in the..." But before she could finish, they lunged forward, tearing the ribbons and beads from her dress. The fabric ripped with each tug, until the gown lay in shreds. Cinderella stood frozen, her heart breaking. The stepmother's cold voice cut through the silence. "You are not going to the ball, Cinderella. You belong here. Now clean up this mess." Then she turned, sweeping her daughters out of the room, their laughter echoing down the hall. When the house finally grew quiet, Cinderella sank to the floor, clutching the torn fabric. "Why?" she whispered, tears falling onto the ruined dress. "Why must they be so cruel?" She ran outside into the garden, where the moon shone softly over the flowers. "I tried so hard," she sobbed. "I did everything right. Why can't I have just one night of happiness?" For a moment, all was still. Then, from behind a cluster of roses, a gentle light began to glow. It shimmered brighter and brighter until it formed the shape of a kind, smiling woman in a shimmering gown. Now, my dear," said the woman in a warm, comforting voice, "dry those tears." Cinderella blinked in surprise. Who are you?" "Why, your fairy godmother." "Of course," the woman said with a twinkle in her eye. "And I must say, you've been very brave, my child. Now, let's see about getting you to that ball." "My fairy godmother," Cinderella whispered. "But how? I have no carriage, no gown." "No," the fairy godmother raised a delicate wand. "Nonsense. Where there is kindness and faith, my dear, there is always magic." She waved her wand in a graceful swirl, and suddenly, the old pumpkin in the garden began to glow. It grew larger and larger until it turned into a magnificent golden carriage. The mice squeaked as they lifted into the air, their tiny bodies transforming into elegant white horses with shiny bridles. "Gus, Jaq," Cinderella gasped, clapping her hands. "Now, for you, my dear," said the fairy godmother. She touched Cinderella's torn dress with her wand, and in an instant, the rags melted away into a shimmering gown of pale blue, sparkling like 1,000 stars. A delicate ribbon tied her hair, and on her feet appeared 2 glass slippers so fine they looked like drops of light. Cinderella twirled in amazement. It's beautiful," she whispered. "Oh, fairy godmother, thank you." The woman smiled. "Just remember, my dear, this magic will only last until midnight. When the clock strikes 12, everything will return to what it was before. So, enjoy the ball, but don't forget the time." "I won't," said Cinderella, her heart bursting with joy. "I promise." She stepped into the golden carriage, and the horses neighed softly. As the carriage began to roll down the moonlit path, the fairy godmother called after her, "Remember, my dear, have courage and be kind." Cinderella looked back and waved, her smile shining brighter than the stars. As she rode toward the palace, she gazed out the window at the twinkling lights of the kingdom. Her heart fluttered with wonder. Is this really happening? She whispered. The road curved through forests and over silver streams until, at last, the royal palace appeared in the distance, tall and shining like a dream. Music floated on the breeze, and the night sparkled with lanterns and laughter. For the first time in her life, Cinderella felt free. And as the carriage rolled up to the palace gates, the guards bowed low, and the great doors swung open. Inside, the chandeliers glimmered, and the prince himself stood at the top of the staircase, waiting. But that, dear listener, is a story for the next episode, when dreams and destiny finally meet under the stars. Before you drift off to sleep tonight, don't forget, if you loved this part of Cinderella's magical journey, tap the like button, subscribe to Little Dreamland Tales, and click the bell so you'll be the first to hear what happens at the royal ball in episode 3. Sweet dreams, little dreamers, and always remember, kindness, courage, and a little bit of magic can change everything.